My name is Ella R.A. Vance, and 3 seconds ago, I was dead at 78. Now I'm in a tiny, cramped room that reeks of stale beer and cheap perfume. It takes me a moment to recognize it. A single room in a rundown motel on the outskirts of our college town. The kind of place you go to when you don't want to be found. And it's not just any day. I know exactly what day this is. It's the day the floor dropped out from under my life. It's the day my entire future was stolen from me. A phone buzzes on the nightstand. I grab it, my heart hammering against my ribs. The screen is lit up with a string of text messages from an unknown number. The contact name makes bile rise in my throat. Maya. He's all mine now, LRA. The first message is smug, triumphant. You were just a placeholder. A boring little stepping stone. He never loved you, not like he loves me. Did you think you could compete? Look at you. You're a ghost. A colorless, forgettable little nobody. I have everything you wanted. His attention, his time, his heart. When he's with me, he doesn't even remember your name. It's like you never even existed in his world. You were just an obstacle, and now you're removed. It's poetic, really. I read at the messages, and my blood runs cold. Then white-hot, burning anger surges through me, so potent it's almost a physical pain. This is it. The moment that broke me the first time. My boyfriend, Leo, the man I'd loved with a naive, desperate devotion since freshman year, had left me for my own roommate, my supposed best friend. They'd been sneaking around behind my back for months. Their affair a dirty secret I was the last to know. I remembered the crushing humiliation, the endless nights of crying, the way my grades plummeted, and how my carefully constructed life fell apart. And Maya, she hadn't just taken him. She tormented me with it, gloating, making sure I knew just how worthless I was in her eyes and by extension his. The first time around I'd sobbed, I'd begged him to come back, and I'd let her cruel messages chip away at my soul until there was nothing left but a hollow shell. But something is different this time. I'm not just Ella R.A. Vance, the heartbroken college senior. I'm Ella R.A. Vance, the woman who's lived an entire life, who's felt the cold touch of death, and who has seen with horrifying celerity the full tapestry of the future that's about to unfold. I know what's coming. I know everything. The motel room is a mess. Empty beer bottles litter the floor, and a cheap bottle of vodka, half-finished, is on the dresser. My clothes are re-scattered, a haphazard jumble. Leo's jacket is draped over the chair, a worn leather thing I'd bought him for his birthday. I'd come here to meet him, to try and fix things, to make him see that what we had was real. He'd left me a voicemail earlier today, his voice full of a forced sympathy, telling me he needed to talk. And here I was waiting for him, my heart in my throat. But the voicemail was a trap, I realize now. He and Maya planned this. They wanted to break me in person, to see the look on my face. I press my lips into a thin line, the ghost of a smile flickering at the corner of my mouth. Not this time, you little snake. That I slipped the phone into my pocket. I know what I need to do. It's time to rewrite the script. I take a deep breath, steadying myself. I hear the faint sound of a motorcycle engine in the distance, getting closer. That's Leo's. The sound is unmistakable. A throaty ROA that used to make my heart flutter. Now it just makes me feel a cold, steely resolve. The door swings open without a knock, and there he is. Lang. He's still that devastatingly handsome guy, tall, with messy dark hair, and those intense brown eyes that used to make me feel like I was the only girl in the world. He's wearing his usual uniform, a faded band t-shirt and ripped jeans. He looks anxious, fidgeting with his keys, a sorry expression on his face that I can see right through. LRA, he says, his voice a low murmur. Hey. He closes the door behind him. I don't move. I just watch him. This man who broke me so completely the first time. Look, he starts, rubbing the back of his neck. We need to talk. It's about us. Things have been weird, you know. Weird, I repeat, my voice flat. I'm a corpse. Define weird, Leo. He flinches at my tone, the sharpness of it. That's not the reaction he expected. He was probably bracing for TRS, for begging, for an emotional meltdown. I just think we've both been so busy. And maybe we need some space. We've been together since the beginning of college. People change, Ella R.A. We've changed. Maybe. Maybe we want different things. We changed, I say, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Sounds foreign to me, the sound of it. Funny. I feel like I'm just beginning to understand myself. That's good. He latches onto the positive, his eyes lighting up with a false hope. That's really good. And I want you to be happy. I really do. It's just I don't think I can be the person to make you happy anymore. This is it. The big speech. I'd heard it once before, and I dissolved into a puddle of pathetic tears. Not this time. Is that why you asked me to meet you here, Leo? I ask, gesturing around the cheap motel room. To tell me you want to break up, you couldn't have done it at the coffee shop on campus like a normal person. He looks uncomfortable. I just wanted it to be private. I knew you'd be upset. I shake my head slowly. No. You didn't bring me here for privacy. You brought me here because you knew I'd come running, hoping to fix things. You brought me here so you and your little girlfriend could have a good laugh at my expense. His face goes pale. What are you talking about? I don't have a girlfriend. You don't, I say, my voice dripping with sarcasm. So you and Maya rent a thing now. That's funny, because your jacket is on the chair, but your phone is in her hand. She's been texting me from your phone, Leo. The blood drains from his face. What? No, she wouldn't. She told me she has everything I ever wanted. I say, reciting her smug words. She said I was a boring placeholder. But there's one thing she doesn't have, Leo. She doesn't have the truth. She doesn't know what you're hiding. Leo's hand flies to his chest, his breath catching. His eyes wide with panic. Lara, please don't do this. This isn't a good idea. Let's just be adults about this. Adults, I scoff. You two were sneaking around like adolescents, sending me cruel texts while I'm waiting for you in a dive motel. You want to talk about being adults? You don't understand, he says, his voice dropping to a shaky whisper. You don't know the whole story. There are things I never told you. Are you talking about the medical report? I say, the words dropping from my lips like stones into a pond. The one you're hiding from Maya, the one you've been hiding from everyone. Leo staggers back as if I've slapped him. The blood is completely gone from his face, leaving him a sickly shade of gray. The panic in his eyes morphs into pure terror. How do you know about that? He chokes out. That I stand up from the bed, not in a rush, but with a slow, deliberate movement. I walk toward him, and he backs away, his legs hitting the dresser. He's cornered. I know everything, Leo. I say, my voice quiet, but with an edge of steel. I know your little secret. The one that's going to change everything for you. And I know what happens next. I know that in 2 weeks, you're going to be diagnosed with a rare genetic condition, Huntington's disease. I know it's going to be a death sentence for you. And I know the thing that's going to terrify you the most isn't your own mortality. He's trembling now, his hands gripping the edge of the dresser so tightly his knuckles are white. Elaha. It's the fact that you can pass it on. I continue, the words falling into the silence of the room like a guillotine. You can't have children. Ever. And you know that Maya, your perfect, beautiful, scheming little Maya, wants a white picket fence and a house full of kids more than she wants anything in the world. Her dream isn't a man, it's a family. And you can't give her that. You're a dead end. He lets out a choked sob, a sound of pure, unadulterated despair. Please, Lara. Please don't tell her. It will destroy her. It'll destroy everything. I stop in front of him, close enough to see the tremors in his jaw, the TRS welling in his eyes. He's not sad, he's terrified. It's a beautiful look on him. You're right. I say, my tone shifting from cold steel to something almost gentle. It's not her business. It's yours. But Maya thinks she's won. She thinks she's taken the golden prize. Let her have the prize, Leo. You're a prize that's been recalled. I hear a soft click from the open door. Maya is standing there, her perfectly manicured hand still on the doorknob. She must have just arrived. Her face is a mask of confusion. A smug smile still frozen on her lips from the text she sent me. Ready to witness my heartbreak. She's wearing a little black dress that's too short for the cold weather. Her blonde hair a perfect curtain of waves. What's going on? She asks, her voice light and breezy, the tone of a victor surveying her spoils. I look from her blank face to Leo's ashen one. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. I hold Leo's terrified gaze for a long silent moment, and then I walk past him. Tawa to the door. Tawa Maya. I stop in the doorway, right next to her, and I finally let a real smile spread across my face. It's a chilling smile, a smile of grim satisfaction. Maya, I say, my voice low and sweet like a lullaby. Congratulations. I just told him he's all yours. I lean in a little closer, my voice dropping to a whisper only she can hear. And Leo just realized he can never give you the one thing you want most, children. I see the confusion in her eyes, the flicker of doubt. She doesn't understand, not yet. She's still got her triumphant smirk, but it's sta rooting to waver. What are you talking about? She whispers back. Ask him. I say, tilting my head. Tawa the inside of the room. Ask him about his medical report. I don't wait for her reaction. I step out into the cold night air, leaving them standing there in the doorway. Two people on the precipice of a disaster they don't even understand, yet at the door to the motel room slams shut behind me. And I hear the muffled sound of Maya's voice, sharp and inquisitive, followed by Leo's anguished sobs. The show has begun. And this time, I'm not a player in their pathetic game. I'm the one writing the ending. I walk away from the motel, the streetlights casting long, distorted shadows on the pavement. I'm not going to run back to my dorm room and cry. I have no intention of being the victim again. My new life begins now. I need to find a place to stay, to figure out my next move. I know the future, and I know that when Maya finally understands the magnitude of what she's won, she'll come for me. She'll want answers. But I'll be ready. I have the script, and I'm about to rewrite it, one page at a time. I spent the next week in a haze of calculated detachment. My entire world had been upended, but instead of feeling lost, I felt an unprecedented CLA righty. The grief I'd ride for an entire lifetime over this betrayal had evaporated, leaving behind a diamond hard core of strategy. I wasn't just surviving. I was executing. My first and most crucial act was to ensure I had a place to live that wasn't my dorm room, which was now practically Maya's territory. Thanks to the 50 years of life I'd lived after this date, I knew a thing or two about the stock market, about real estate, about which tiny, overlooked startups were about to explode. I had a small inheritance from my grandmother, and I knew exactly how to make it work for me. The first thing I did was sell the Apple stock I knew would tank next week, and buy into a small biotech company that was about to announce a major breakthrough. That money, the first wave of my new fortune, bought me a tiny studio apartment in an old, slightly run-down building on the other side of town. It was far from the campus, far from the whispers and the pitying looks I knew I'd get. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. It was a fortress. It was mine. Meanwhile, I watched the chaos I'd left behind from afar. Maya's social media was a disaster. Her perfectly curated Instagram grid, which usually featured cute coffee shots and inspiring quotes, had devolved into a series of cryptic, angry posts that her friends were sta rooting to comment on. Some people are just toxic. They pretend to be your friend and then try to sabotage your happiness. This was her first post, the day after the motel. It was accompanied by a dark, moody picture of a wilted flower. The comments were immediate, full of her sycophantic friends offering support, asking what happened, who was the snake. They were all convinced she was the victim of some terrible injustice. It was comical, really. I knew what had actually happened. The brilliant facade she'd constructed was crumbling. I heard from a mutual friend that Leo had officially moved in with Maya the day after our confrontation. That was interesting. A part of me had expected him to try to run, to disappear. Instead, he had clung to her. A desperate move of a drowning man. Maya, for her part, had apparently been delighted. She'd posted a picture of his leather jacket hanging in her closet with the caption, "Home." It was a victory lap, a public declaration of her conquest. She didn't know yet that she was celebrating the capture of a ticking time bomb. She called me for the first time on a Wednesday night. I was in my new apartment, looking over some online accounts, watching my money grow. My phone buzzed with a name that still, deep in my gut, made me feel a flicker of the old pain. Maya Kendrick. I let it ring. It buzzed again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. "What do you want, Maya?" My voice was flat, disinterested. "LRA, Her voice was cold, crisp. It was the voice she used when she was trying to assert dominance. I'm not going to play games with you. What did you tell Leo? I didn't tell him anything, I said. He told you everything I know, didn't he, or did he try to lie? There was a pause. I could practically hear the hearts turning in her head. He told me some ridiculous story about a medical report. I don't believe him for a second. It's a lie. It's a lie you put in his head to try and drive us our... It's not a lie, Maya, I said, my voice taking on a sympathetic, almost pitying tone that I knew would drive her insane. It's the truth. The very truth you're so desperate to ignore. Why do you think he was so eager to leave his perfectly boring, perfectly reliable girlfriend? He knows he can't give you what you want. He knows he's defective. He needed someone new. He needed a new fantasy. You're just jealous, she shrieked into the phone. You can't stand the fact that he wants me. He loves me. He told me he loves me. He also told me he loved me, I said calmly. And he's with you now. Isn't he? You think that makes you special, it makes you the next girl in line. I paused, letting the venom of the words sink in. But you're not stupid, Maya. You'll figure it out. I know you will. You're not the type to let a man ruin your dreams. I hung up before she could respond. I didn't need to hear her rage. I needed her to understand the doubt I'd planted. Her obsession with Leo was a facade for her real obsession. The perfect life. I knew that because I had studied her for years. Our entire college relationship was a lie constructed to make her look better. To make her feel like she was winning the game of life. She'd stolen my boyfriend, the popular, handsome, future successful man, to prove she was better than me. Now I had to see how she'd react when she realized that the prize she'd won had a giant, life-destroying crack running through it. The next week, I sta root seeing Leo around campus again. He looked awful. He'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He was no longer the confident, easygoing guy from the motel. He was a ghost. He'd see me from across the quad, and he'd freeze, panic flashing in his eyes, before scurrying away. Maya, on the other hand, was putting on a spectacular show. She was more social than ever, constantly dragging Leo to parties and events, posting pictures of them on her Instagram. The comments were full of goals, and you too, so perfect. It was a desperate, frantic performance. I could see the cracks in her smile, the way she held on to Leo a little too tightly. She was trying to distract herself, trying to convince herself that the doubts were just my poison. She was trying to prove that she was in control. That's when I knew I had to escalate. I had to give her the final piece of the puzzle, the smoking gun she couldn't ignore. I couldn't just tell her, I had to show her. But how? I knew Leo's medical file existed. I knew which hospital he went to. But I wasn't going to break the law to get it. That would be stupid. And besides, I didn't need to steal it. I just had to let it fall into her hands. The opportunity presented itself 2 weeks later. A mutual friend, Ra, had a small birthday party. It was a casual thing, just drinks at a bar downtown. I knew Maya would be there. And I knew Leo would be forced to come along. I had prepared for this. I arrived late, just as the party was hitting its peak. The bar was packed, a wall of noise and bright lights. I saw Maya immediately. She was holding court in the middle of the room, her blonde hair shimmering under the lights, Leo hanging on her arm like a sullen accessory. He was smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. That I didn't go straight for them. I had a different target. I walked up to the bar and ordered a tonic water with lime. I waited, pretending to be absorbed in my phone, but I was watching the crowd. I saw Leo detach himself from Maya and head toward the restrooms. He was glancing around nervously, the panic back in his eyes. Good. I moved. I didn't run, but I walked with purpose, weaving through the crowd. I made it to the hallway just as he was coming out. He saw me and froze. "Lra," he breathed, his voice trembling. "Please. Just leave me alone." "I'm not here to fight, Leo," I said, my voice soft. "I'm here to help you." He looked at me, a flicker of desperate hope in his eyes. "Help me how?" I took a step closer to him. He flinched, but he didn't back away. "You're in a dangerous game with Maya," I whispered. "She's not going to stop until she gets what she wants. And what she wants, Leo, is a family. She's going to pressure you into proposing. I know she is. The more you try to delay her, the more suspicious she'll become. He looked away, his jaw tight. He knew I was right. What can I do? I can't break up with her now. She'll make my life a living hell. I know, I said, my voice full of fake sympathy. That's why I'm telling you, you need to protect yourself. You need to go to the doctor. Get a second opinion. And when you do, keep the records. Keep everything. It's your only proof. It's the only thing that will make her leave you alone. He shook his head, his eyes filled with despair. She'll find out anyway. The truth always comes out. I know, I said, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But if you keep the record, you control the narrative. You decide when and how she finds out. It's better than her finding out on her own, isn't it? He looked at me, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why are you helping me? I ruined you. I let out a sad little laugh. You didn't ruin me, Leo. You freed me. I realized I was too good for you. And now, I'm trying to help you avoid a much bigger disaster than me. I placed a hand gently on his arm. Just think about it. You know where I live if you change your mind. I pulled my hand back and walked away, leaving him standing there in the dimly lit hallway, the seed of my plan planted in his anxious mind. I returned to the Pa Rudy and saw Maya watching me. Her eyes were like chips of ice. She'd seen me talking to her boyfriend. I gave her a small, innocent smile as I walked back. Tawa RD the BAR. Let her stew. Let the doubt consume her. She'd confront him later, and he'd be too red to lie. He'd tell her about my advice about the medical records. It would be the final nail in the coffin. As I predicted, the real fireworks happened the next week. Maya, fueled by suspicion and my little performance, demanded to see the report. She told Leo it was the only way to prove my lies were just that, lies. Poor, pathetic Leo, terrified of her, finally caved. He gave her the paper file from the hospital. And that, I knew, was when everything came crashing down. About a week after that, I was in the produce section of the local grocery store, inspecting a rather forlorn-looking avocado, when a whirlwind of blonde hair and fury slammed into my peripheral vision. It was Maya. She had ditched the Instagram-approved, perfectly styled look. Her hair was a tangled mess, her mascara was smudged, and her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Elaha. My name came out as a growl that I didn't look up from the avocado. Maya. What a surprise. You look terrible. You knew, she hissed, her voice shaking with a raw, uncontrolled rage I had never seen in her before. You knew about his medical report. You knew all along, and you let me walk right into it. You let me parade him around like a prize, and you knew he was a broken, defective thing. I finally put the avocado down and turned to face her. I let a slow, cruel smile spread across my face. Defective? Oh, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? He's still a person. He just can't give you the family you want. The one you're so obsessed with. Her face contorted with a fury so intense it was almost essery. You set me up. You made me want him. You let me win just so you could watch me lose. Let you win, I laughed, the sound sharp and cold. Maya, I didn't let you do anything. You stole him. You wanted him and you took him. And now you're mad because the prize you won is broken. That's the most pathetic thing I've ever heroed. Why, she screamed, drawing the attention of other shoppers. Why did you do this to me? I looked her straight in the eyes, my smile fading. Because you are parazit, Maya. You have spent the last 4 years trying to take everything from me. You tried to take my confidence, my grades, my friends, and then you tried to take my boyfriend. You didn't want him because you loved him. You wanted him because I had him. You are a miserable, jealous little girl who can't stand the sight of anyone else having a single thing you want. So I just decided to let you have your prize. You said it yourself. Now he's all yours. Congratulations. I picked up my shopping basket and walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of the produce aisle, the pieces of her shattered, perfect life lying at her feet. The look of devastation on her face was better than any victory I could have ever imagined. She had finally gotten what she deserved. It wasn't justice, it was a lesson. And I had just taught it to her. The revenge was sweet. But I knew this wasn't the end. The real story, the one that was going to truly destroy her, was just beginning. The report was just the opening act. The main event was yet to come. I felt a thrill of anticipation. This was going to be good. The explosion in the grocery store was just the beginning. For the next 2 weeks, Maya became a woman possessed. Her entire carefully constructed world, the one built on a foundation of being the most desirable, the most successful, the most envied girl on campus, had crumbled to dust. And she was determined to blame me for every single piece of it. I didn't avoid her. That would have been too easy. I wanted to see her downfall up close. The gossip mill on campus went into overdrive. The story, as it spread, was a juicy, convoluted mess. Some people heard that Maya had stolen Leo from me, and then he'd dumped her. Others heard she'd trapped him with a pregnancy that wasn't real, and he'd fled the state. But the most persistent rumor, the one that made my blood sing, was the truth. The whispers sta root small and quiet, then grew into a dull roar. Did you hear Leo has a disease? A genetic one. That's why Maya's been such a mess. She got played. I heard she was planning their wedding. Can you imagine planning a wedding to a guy who can never have kids? Her social media, once a temple of aspirational living, became a monument to her spiral. Her followers, once loyal admirers, sta root to turn on her, leaving snide comments and mocking her open desperation. She was a cautionary tale. She had thought she was the hero of her own story. But she had become the villain everyone loved to hate. Leo was no better. He went from being the adored boyfriend to a figure of pity. The confident athlete was gone. He was just a quiet, haunted shell of a man, shuffling around campus with his head down, trying to avoid eye contact with anyone. He was a ghost in his own life. I saw him once, sitting alone in the library, staring at his laptop screen with a dead, empty expression. I felt a fleeting pang of something, not sympathy, maybe a cold, clinical pity. But it was gone in an instant. That I knew that Maya wouldn't just sit back and let me win. It wasn't in her nature. She was a predator, and she needed to feel like she was in control. So, she sta root to SMA our campaign against me. It was clumsy, transparent, and deeply pathetic. She sta root telling our mutual friends that I was a sociopath. That I'd orchestrated everything to destroy her because I was just a jealous, bitter, friendless nobody. She told people I'd faked the whole medical report, that I'd forged it to make Leo leave her. She tried to rally people against me, but her desperation was palpable. People saw her at the coffee shop, crying into her latte, or walking around campus with a frantic, hunted expression. The sympathy she had engineered at the beginning of this whole mess had evaporated. She just looked unstable. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I just continued my own life, letting her rage against the wind. I didn't see about her pathetic little schemes. My plans were bigger. They were far more than just petty revenge. I was preparing for the future I knew was coming. That my financial moves were paying off. The biotech stock was soaring. I'd invested in a few other small companies that I knew were going to be huge, including an obscure little payment processing startup called Payit, which I knew would revolutionize online transactions in a few years. I was already wealthy enough to secure my future, and I was only getting sta root. I also sta root making other moves. I knew the economy was about to take a dip, so I diversified my portfolio and bought some property in a part of town that was about to be rezoned for commercial use. It was like having a cheat sheet for life. The future was my playground. I could see it all, the broad strokes of the next few decades. The tech boom that was going to create billionaires. The financial crisis that was going to destroy the unprepared. The cultural shifts that were going to define a generation. I was no longer Ella R.A. Vance, the heartbroken college senior. I was Ella R.A. Vance, the architect of my own fate. And in this new life, I wasn't going to just survive. I was going to thrive. At the turning point in this mini WA. Came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was in the campus library, studying in a quiet corner, when I felt a presence loom over me. I looked up and there was Maya. She looked terrible. The vibrant, arrogant girl I'd known was a hollow shell. Her skin was sallow, her eyes were sunken and bloodshot, and her usually perfect blonde hair was greasy and lank. Ella R.A., she said, her voice a hoa RSE whisper. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Maya, I said, turning back to my textbook. Please, she said, and the word came out as a choked sob. Just hear me out. I'm begging you." The word begging, hanging in the air, was a balm to my soul. It was the sound of her pride finally breaking. I sighed, closing my book with a deliberate snap. "Fine. You have 5 minutes." She sat down opposite me, wringing her hands. The library was quiet, a few other students casting curious glances our way. She leaned in, her voice low and trembling. "I know what I did was wrong. I know I was a horrible person. I just wanted to be loved, Lara. I wanted to be chosen. And I saw how Leo looked at you, and I got so jealous. I just wanted what you had. I didn't think about what it would do to you. I didn't see a re." She sta root crying then, ugly, messy sobs that were a far cry from the elegant TRS she used to perform for sympathy. "And then you did this to me. You knew what would happen. You set me up. You took my future away, just like I tried to take yours." It was a masterclass in victimhood. She was painting herself as the tragic figure, a girl who had made a small mistake and had been punished with the cruelest of fates. I watched her for a long moment, my face expressionless. "You're right, Maya," I said, my voice flat. "I did set you up. But I didn't take your future away from you. You took it away from yourself. You saw a bright, shiny object and you decided you had to have it, no matter who it hurt. You didn't see a re about Leo. You didn't see a re about me. All you see a read about was winning. And now you've won. You got your prize. The problem is you picked a poison chalice. That's not my fault." I could see the anger sparking in her eyes through the TRS. The plea was gone, replaced by a raw, wounded rage. "So what do you want from me now? What do you want me to do?" "I don't want anything from you," I said, standing up. "I got what I wanted. I got to watch your little fairy tale implode. That's all the revenge I need." "But you can't just leave me like this," she wailed, her voice sighing in the quiet library. "You have to fix this. You have to tell people it wasn't my fault." "It was entirely your fault," I said, my voice cold as steel. "You made your bed, Maya. Now you have to lie in it. You're not a victim. You're a perpetrator. And the only one who can fix your life is you." I picked up my book and walked away, leaving her there, sobbing in the silent library. The feeling of walking away from her for the second time was even sweeter than the first. I had not only exposed her lies, I had shown her that her entire identity was a lie. She had built her life on a foundation of arrogance and manipulation, and it had crumbled. She had no one to blame but herself. The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. I was no longer interested in Maya's drama. She had become a non-factor, a sad cautionary tale I'd moved on from. My focus was on my own future. I knew that Leo and Maya were finally over. I had seen Leo around campus, and he was sta rooting to look a little better. He had gotten a haircut and was even smiling occasionally. He was processing his diagnosis, accepting the hand life had dealt him. It wasn't a happy ending for him, but it was his ending. He would survive in his own way. Maya, on the other hand, was a complete mess. I heard from SA Ra that she was on academic probation and had been seen at a campus therapist's office. She was broken, stripped of her armor. I didn't feel bad for her. I felt nothing but a cold, detached satisfaction. I watched them both from a distance. My revenge was complete. I had taken the girl who had tried to destroy me and let her ruin her own life. I had taken the man who had betrayed me and shown him that his greatest fear was not his own death, but the death of the illusion he'd created for himself. I had won. I had everything I could have ever wanted, but the feeling of victory was hollow. It was like I had been chasing a shadow. I had spent so much time focused on their downfall that I hadn't really thought about what came next. I had been so consumed by the past, by the hurt and the betrayal, that I had forgotten to build a future for myself. I had my money, my security, but I was still alone. I was still the same LRA, just with a better bank account and a burning, hollow emptiness where my heart used to be. That was when I realized the true nature of my rebirth. It wasn't a gift. It was a second chance. And I had wasted the first few months of it on petty revenge. I had been so focused on making Maya pay that I had forgotten to live. I had become a ghost in my own life, just as she had warned me I was. The irony was not lost on me that I needed a new purpose. I needed to rebuild myself, not just my bank account. I sta root by cleaning up my apartment. It had become a monument to my isolation. A cluttered space where I brooded and planned. I bought new furniture, hung pictures on the walls, made it feel like a home. Then, I sta root reconnecting with the friends I had lost in the chaos of the breakup. I called Sarah, the one who had thrown the party, and we went for coffee. I had been so closed off, so guarried that I had pushed everyone away. Sarah was surprised to hear from me, but she was kind. We talked for hours and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I sta root going to the gym. I sta root reading books that weren't about finance or revenge. I sta root thinking about the future in a different way. I knew what the world was going to look like in 20 years, 30 years. I had a unique gift, and I could use it to do something more than just protect myself. I could build something. I could create something that would outlast me. I sta root making plans. I knew that renewable energy was going to be a massive industry. I knew that sustainable agriculture was going to be crucial. I sta root rese urching Leah running and planning. The future, I realized, wasn't just a source of anxiety or a cheat sheet for revenge. It was a canvas. And I was going to paint something beautiful on it. The memory of Maya's face in the grocery store, the look of utter devastation, had been satisfying. But it was a fleeting pleasure. The feeling of building something, of creating a legacy, that was something that could last. I didn't want to be defined by what Maya had done to me. I wanted to be defined by what I did with my second chance. The revenge was a necessary chapter, a catharsis I needed to move on. But it wasn't the whole story. It was just the prologue. The real story, my story, was only just beginning. I had been given a gift, and I was finally ready to use it. I was done living in the past. It was time to build my future. A year passed. Then two. I watched the world unfold exactly as I remembered it, the broad strokes and the fine details, and I positioned myself accordingly. The biotech company I'd invested in went public, and my modest stake turned into a small fortune. The property I'd bought on the edge of town was rezoned, and I sold it for 10 times what I'd paid. The little payment processing sta tup, pay it, became a household name, and my EARLY investment made me a very wealthy woman. I wasn't just secure anymore. I was powerful. I had the kind of money that opened doors, that bought silence, that made people listen. I didn't flaunt it. There was no point. I didn't need the validation of others, not anymore. I used my wealth to fund the things I truly read about. I sta root a small foundation focused on sustainable agriculture, investing in RCH for drought-resistant crops and eco-friendly farming methods. I funded scholarships for women in STEM fields. I quietly donated to local charities that helped women escaping abusive relationships. I was building something, a legacy that had nothing to do with Leo or Maya or the petty dramas of my college years. I was becoming the person I had always wanted to be, the person I might have been if my first life hadn't been derailed by their betrayal. I saw Leo occasionally, in the years that followed. He hadn't left town. He'd gotten a job at a local hardware store, a quiet, unassuming position that didn't demand much from him. He'd found a sort of peace, I suppose, in the acceptance of his condition. He was dating someone new, a sweet, unassuming woman named Claire who worked at the local library. She was the kind of person Maya would have dismissed as boring and beneath her. But Leo seemed genuinely happy with her. They weren't having children. They had made peace with that. They had a dog in a small den and a quiet, simple life. I watched him from a distance, and I felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness exactly. That was too strong a word. But a sense of closure. He had paid his price, and he was living with the consequences. He was no longer a threat to me, no longer a source of pain. He was just a man, making the best of a bad hand. Maya, on the other hand, was a different story. Her downfall was swift and spectacular. After the grocery store incident, she spiraled. She lost her scholarship, dropped out of school, and moved back in with her parents in a small town a few hours away. I heard through the grapevine that she had tried to make a go of it as an influencer, posting aspirational content about her new life, but the followers had vanished. People remembered her meltdown. They remembered the cruelty she'd shown me. The internet has a long memory for that kind of thing. She went through a string of relationships, each one more desperate and short-lived than the last. She was looking for someone to save her, to restore the illusion of her perfect life. But she was broken. The confidence, the arrogance, the charm, it was all gone. She was a hollow shell wandering through life, looking for someone to blame. She blamed me, of course. She blamed Leo. She blamed her parents, her friends, the universe. She never blamed herself. That was the tragedy of Maya. She could never see the role she had played in her own destruction. She called me once about 3 hours after the motel. I was in my office, a sleek modern space in a downtown high-rise, looking over the annual report for my foundation. My phone buzzed with an unknown number, and I answered out of habit, Ella R.A. Her voice was thin, reedy, a ghost of the sharp, confident tone it used to be. "It's Maya." I paused, the pen in my hand hovering over the report. "What do you want, Maya?" She faltered, and he heard her take a ragged breath. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For Leo. For the texts. For all of it." It was a hollow apology, I could tell. It was the apology of a woman who had hit rock bottom and was looking for an escape, not for forgiveness. She wanted me to absolve her, to tell her it was okay, to give her permission to move on. I wasn't going to give her that "Okay," I said, my voice flat. "Okay," she repeated, confusion in her voice. "That's it, you're not going to say anything else?" "What do you want me to say, Maya? That I forgive you, that I understand I don't. I don't forgive you, and I don't understand how you could do what you did. But I also don't see a anymore. You're a part of my past and I've moved on. I suggest you do the same." She was silent for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, shallow and uneven. "You don't have to be so cold," she whispered. "I'm not being cold. I'm being honest. You asked for an apology, and I gave it to you. You asked for forgiveness, and I told you I can't give it. That's all I have to offer. If that's not enough, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm not the person who can fix your life, Maya. I never was. You have to do that yourself." I hung up before she could respond. I didn't feel a surge of triumph or satisfaction. I just felt tired. The anger, the bitterness, the desperate need for revenge that had consumed me for so long had faded. It was like a fever that had broken. I was finally, truly free of her. The years rolled on. I became a respected philanthropist, a regular name in the business sections of the local papers. I was interviewed for a profile in a women's magazine, and the reporter asked me about my journey, about how I had overcome adversity. I told her a version of the truth. I talked about the importance of resilience, of learning to trust yourself, of building a life on your own terms. I didn't mention Leo or Maya. They were footnotes in my story, irrelevant details. My life was my own now, and it was full. I met someone. His name was David, and he was a professor of environmental science at the university. He was kind, intelligent, and deeply passionate about the same things I was. He wasn't a whirlwind romance like Leo had been. It was a slow, steady burn, a friendship that deepened into something more over time. He didn't know about my past, not the full story. He knew I'd had a rough breakup in college, but I never told him about the rebirth, about the future I had seen. That was a secret I would carry with me to my grave. We got married in a small, intimate ceremony at a botanical garden. I wore a simple white dress, and we danced under the stars. It was quiet, and it was perfect. It wasn't the grand, dramatic wedding Maya had always dreamed of, the one I used to dream of too. It was something better. It was real. We bought a house in the suburbs, a modest place with a big backyard where we could grow vegetables. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl. I watched them grow, marveling at the miracle of it, the simple, profound joy of raising a family. I had never thought I would have this. In my first life, I had died alone, bitter and resentful. In this life, I had everything I had ever wanted and more. I had a family, a purpose, a legacy. And then one evening when I was 47 years old, I was in my study looking over some documents when a memory surfaced. It was a memory from my first life, a memory I had long suppressed. I had been in the hospital, the one I had died in, and I had overheard 2 nurses talking. They were discussing a patient, a woman who had been brought in after a car accident. She had been in a coma for weeks, And the doctors had given up hope. The nurses were talking about her with pity, about how young she was, how tragic it all was. I didn't remember the name. I didn't remember the details. It was just a fleeting memory, a piece of my past life that had been buried under the weight of my new existence. And then I saw it. The date. The year. The name of the patient. It was Maya. That I sat back in my chair, the papers forgotten in my hands. I had been so focused on my own life, on my own revenge and my own happiness, that I had never thought to look up what had happened to her. I had never read. But now the memory was there, sharp and clear. The accident. The coma. The date that I made a call, and I used my resources to find out what had happened. The records were sealed, but I had connections. It was a simple thing to uncover the truth. Maya had been in a car accident on a rainy night, about 20 years ago. She had been driving drunk, and she had crashed into a tree. She had been in a coma for months, and when she woke up, she was a different person. The accident had damaged her brain. She had lost her memory, the ability to form new ones. She was trapped in a perpetual present, unable to remember anything from day to day. She was living in a nursing home, being cared for by strangers. She was a ghost, just as she had always read. I visited her once. It was a cold gray afternoon, and the nursing home was a dreary place, filled with the smell of antiseptic and the distant sound of someone's television. Maya was in a small private room. She was sitting in a chair by the window, ring out at the rain. She was older now, her blonde hair streaked with gray, her face lined with age. She turned to look at me as I walked in, and her eyes were empty. There was no recognition in them, no spark of the bitter, calculating woman I remembered. "Hello," I said softly. "My name is Ella. I'm an old friend." She read at me for a long moment, her brow furrowed. "Ella," she repeated, as if tasting the name. "I don't remember you." "That's okay," I said. "I remember you." I pulled up a chair and sat down next to her. We talked for a while. I told her about the garden I was growing, about my children, about my foundation. She listened, nodding occasionally, a faint, confused smile on her face. She didn't remember any of it. She didn't remember who I was. She didn't remember what she had done. The revenge I had taken, the destruction I had wrought, it was all for nothing. She didn't remember any of it. She was just a sad, broken woman, trapped in a prison of her own making. I stayed with her for an hour, and then I stood up to leave. She looked at me, a flicker of something in her eyes. "Will you come back?" she asked. "You're nice. I like you." I looked at her, the woman who had tried to destroy me, the woman I had spent so much of my life hating. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, not triumph. Just a quiet, deep sadness. She had been the villain of my story, but she was just a lost, broken soul now. The rivalry, the betrayal, the revenge, it had all been meaningless in the end. "I'll try," I said. And I meant it. That I walked out of the nursing home, and into the rain. I got into my car and drove home, to my husband, to my children, to my beautiful full life. I had been given a second chance, and I had used it well. I had taken the pain and the betrayal and the bitterness, and I had turned it into something good. I had built a life that was worth living. And as I pulled into my driveway, I realized that I had finally, truly forgiven her. Not because she deserved it, not because she had earned it, but because I needed to let go of the last thread that tied me to my past. I needed to be free, and in that moment I was finally, completely, utterly free. The story of Ella Vance, the woman who had been betrayed and reborn, was over. The story of Ella Vance, the woman who had built a life on her own terms, was just beginning.